All right, so finding a nice comfortable position, and I'll invite the bell to begin. The bell on Zoom is a little weird, but hopefully it'll come out okay.
Will you be muting everyone before we start? You start?
No, not at this point. We're just
Okay.
going to start with some introductions, but I just want to get everybody kind of just a few seconds to get everyone set up. And, just coming back to yourself.
And I don't have double audio.
Yeah.
Can you hear them?
Call from Fleming D. Call from Fleming D.
So I would ask you to mute yourself if you have.
Call from
Can
Fleming
you mute
D.
everyone, or can everyone mute themselves if they're not speaking, please?
Okay. So welcome everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's Laurie Arron, and so I've been practicing. I read Mickey's book about 3 years ago. I first read his other books, Surrender Experiment. My sister gave it to me, and then was thought it was great. Read The Untethered Soul and was blown away, and then went to decided I had to meet this guy. So I've been practicing mindfulness for about 20 years. Mostly in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, although I've practiced in others, certainly gone to a lot of other retreats and things. And I'm really excited. I've been wanting to teach this for a while, and it's only now that I feel like I actually understand it well enough and have practiced it enough. My practice has been driven mainly by just wanting to let go of my fear, transform my fear and my wanting to feel safe. I think a lot of that. And I find with this practice that it really helps. Really gained a lot of freedom through, initially through Thich Nhat Hanh's practice, but I find Mickey's practice really amazing. So I'm just going to mute. It's like Sylvia's iPad. I'll just mute it. Oh. There, I think that was okay. So that's me right now. I'm practicing mainly with Luminous Ground, and myself and another member of Thich Nhat Hanh's Order of Interbeing, Paul Baranowski, we are both teaching there, and I don't know what else can I tell you. I used to want to make a lot of money. I used to be a closeted gay man, and now I'm a very out gay man. I got quite involved in the LGBT equality movement back in the 90s and 2000s. To tell you, but that's probably enough for now. I'd really like to know why people are here, why they've chosen to come tonight, what you're looking for, because I'd like to hopefully help you to get that, just to know what you're, what. That'll help a lot. So ways you can do that. You can do it in the chat box. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen, if you move your cursor on the Zoom window, there's a chat icon, and if you click it, then it'll come up. It'll come up. So you can put something there, or you can just share out loud. You can unmute yourself if you're muted. And you can tell if you're muted just by moving your cursor and seeing the microphone at the bottom left. It'll either say mute if you're not muted, or it'll say unmute if you're muted. So Brian is saying my audio sounds like it's overmodulating. Are people able to hear me okay? Yeah. Some people are saying, I'm not sure what I can do. It looks like my internet's functioning well. So I'm not sure how your internet's doing. Many mics still not muted. Okay, so I guess if everyone can mute their microphone, that would be great, except unless you want to talk. So if you want to talk, then just go ahead and unmute. And hopefully that will make it easier for everyone to hear. So does anybody want to share just what they're looking for here tonight? Yeah, looks like that's Teresa. I'll just unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I took your mindfulness course and I really liked it, and I want to strengthen that muscle, and so I thought I would take more of your courses. I'd like to learn to relax more and be calm and more equanimous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
De-stress.
Right. Okay.
I could say
Thank you.
something.
Yeah.
It's Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
I've read Untethered Soul twice, and through about 40 years of doing spiritual work, I first discovered the power of releasing a thorn from my heart a long time ago. But once I read Untethered Soul, this was about 5 years ago now, I found that I suddenly had the tools to take those thorns out more actively myself. And I find it a very exciting process, and there has been a lot of internal changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to working with the book again.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bev. Let's see, one person said a friend recommended they read the book, The Untethered Soul, but never picked it up. And that's from Alexander. Anyone else want to share?
I guess I wanted to learn more about the strategies that to unblock, like things that's unblocking you or blocking you to move forward in life. So you mentioned that you would be talking about that, so I wanted to know the steps and strategies and practices that would help to do that.
Mm-hmm. Great. I see Kevin says to discover more about self-limiting thoughts and focus more on the possibilities versus the stop that seems to be what I'm getting caught in. Okay. And Janet said she also struggles with lots of fear. I think you may have a lot of wisdom to offer. I read Untethered Soul and your recommendation. I'd love to explore more. Great.
Can I ask if I can find the book in an e-format, some sort of virtual?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get it in an ebook, or you can get it in an audiobook, or you can get it in paper.
Where? Is it on Kobo or Kindle or?
Yeah, it's actually on everything. It's on everything. It's been
Okay.
been on the New York Times bestseller list for quite a while. If you go to the course page on Luminous Ground, so not the info session page, but the actual course page on luminousground.ca. I've got some links there. I've got a link to chapters for the paperback. I've got a link to Google Play for the ebook, and a link to Toronto Library. Toronto Library is a little complicated, but you can get the audiobook for free. Anybody can get it for free from the Toronto Public Library. So.
A friend of mine just got it from Toronto Public Library as an audiobook. Because the actual book is on on wait list for 700 people.
Yeah, it is a popular book. Yeah. And this book was written I think it was published in 2006 or something like that, or 2007. So it's still it's quite popular. Okay. And Philippa says, I want to develop a deeper practice in Mickey's area. Great, thanks, Philippa. Okay. So why don't we, sorry, someone else want to share?
Sure.
Brian?
I'm about halfway through the book, and its ability to explain how to let go and move on, and to observe yourself experiencing has made a huge difference for me since I started reading it.
Mm.
And I can imagine that after going through the inner child workshop that we did, I think that this one is going to take my abilities to new heights.
Mm. Great. Thanks, Brian. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start now with a meditation. So I would ask everyone to mute yourself. I'm just gonna, to the extent I can, mute everyone. Oops. Okay. I think everybody's muted. Wonderful. So so we're gonna do a meditation. So finding a nice posture where you can be both relaxed and yet alert. Finding a comfortable place to rest your hands with your elbows fairly close to the body so your shoulders are not strained. Good. And allowing the eyes to close if that's comfortable, or you can leave them open, half open in a receptive gaze. And feet flat on the floor if you're on a chair. And stretching up, pressing the sitting bones into the mat or chair. Stretching up towards the ceiling and then allowing everything to relax, hang off the spine. Just noticing if you're leaning front or back. We'll start with one sound of the bell. Allowing the attention to sink deeply into the body. Noticing sensation throughout the body. And allowing this experience to be exactly as it is, allowing the body to be exactly as it is. So there may be areas of pleasant sensation or unpleasant sensation, neutral sensation, areas with no sensation. It's all great. We're just recognizing whatever's there in the body, whatever sensation's there, and allowing it to be as it is. If it's uncomfortable, allowing it to be uncomfortable. Just experiencing this moment as fully as you can, allowing it all the way in. And becoming aware of the breath, aware of the sensations of the body breathing. And knowing when you're breathing in and when you're breathing out. And we're not trying to control the breath at all. It doesn't matter if the breath is long or short, rhythmic or not. We're just allowing the body to breathe itself. Riding the wave of the breath. And bringing kindness and curiosity to this moment. Noticing sensations that are both strong and also subtle. But we're not trying to make anything happen or figure anything out. We're just recognizing what's going on and allowing it to go on, allowing it to be as it is, allowing it to move freely. And whatever's going on in the background, if there's thoughts, emotions, sounds, we don't need to do anything about it. We just leave it in the background and keep our focus on the sensations of the body breathing. And if you notice that the attention has wandered from the body breathing, that's no problem at all. When you notice, you've gone from forgetfulness to awareness. That's wonderful. So celebrate that. And then gently bring the attention back to the body breathing. Noticing sensation, allowing the body and the breath to be exactly as they are, to move freely. And noticing any resistance to this experience. Noticing any, perhaps there's unpleasant sensations and there's a resistance, a pushing away or a gripping or tightening. And if you notice that, just allowing that area to relax with each out breath, to relax to whatever extent it wants, not forcing, just allowing. And letting go of any wish that it be different. Letting go of the idea that you want the unpleasant sensation to go away. And instead, trying to experience it fully, to let it in all the way so that it touches the depths of your being. Just noticing. Continuing to ride the wave of the breath. Recognizing sensation, allowing it to be as it is, and also recognizing any resistance, any tension, any holding. There might also be pleasant sensation that you don't want it to end. So noticing that as well. And opening as fully as you can to the sensations that are there right now. Now, I'm going to give you a question to ask in your mind. And the idea behind this exercise is just to say the question to yourself and notice what happens after you say the question. But you're not trying to answer the question. We're leaving the intellect out of this completely. We're not trying to figure it out. We're not trying to find an answer. We're just asking the question and noticing what happens. And the question is, and you can ask it over and over again in your mind, every couple of breaths, just asking it again. The question is, the first question is, what is this experience? What is this experience? What is this experience? And the next question is, what is having this experience? What is having this experience? What is having this experience? And the next question is, who am I that notices? Who am I that notices? Who am I that notices? And continuing to be as open as you can to this experience, recognizing sensation and allowing whatever's there to be there, experiencing it as fully as you can. Again, noticing any resistance. Allowing that area to relax with each out breath. Letting go of any idea of wanting things to be different than they are. And asking, who notices? Perhaps leaning back as you ask that question, who notices? You might want to gently open the eyes, not looking at anything in particular, but just allowing seeing to happen. Just to add one more sensory input to this experience. Continuing to just open to this experience. And with the sound of the bell, we'll bring this practice to a close. So allowing the eyes to open if they were closed, and feel free to change your position, to stretch if you want to stretch, massage whatever needs massaging, and just bring some kindness to the body. Just allowing it to move however it wants. And if anybody would like to share anything about that experience, or if anyone has any questions, we just have a few minutes, but just feel free to unmute yourself, or you can ask in the chat box. So you just need to unmute yourself if you want to talk. Okay. So not hearing anyone. Oh, I see one person, Stephanie, asked in the chat box, what was the second question we ask ourselves? I got the first and the last one. Okay. So the first two are, the first one is just kind of a prep for the second one. So just what is this experience? And then the second one is what is having this experience? So what is this experience is really just being open and noticing the full range of experience. And then what is having this experience is it's what's called a pointing out question. So it's intended just to perhaps, and not necessarily, but perhaps to turn the mind onto itself, to turn the mind onto awareness itself, because it's awareness that is having this experience. And the second, the third question, I guess, is who am I that notices, or who notices? And that's the same sort of question. So one has a what and one has a who. Some people find one more effective than the other. Some people I find that there's, they both make something happen, but it's a little different when it's what than when it's who. But it's really just intended to kind of be a catalyst to awareness of awareness. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, we were just trying it for fun here tonight. So, sometimes with me, sometimes I notice something shift and sometimes I don't. It doesn't really matter. We're just having fun here. But it's a way to help us to become aware of awareness. So, and you can play with the questions. It's really just it's just the idea of like, who is aware or what is aware of this experience. Okay.
Laurie?
Yeah, Bev? Yeah?
Yeah, Beverly. I found the questions gave me an image of watching a three-ring circus instead of being in one of the rings. So even if it's thinking about the Rice Krispie squares that I ate and the fullness in my stomach, like that's one of the rings, or I'm excited because I did a piano composition. I've had some good feedback. So I was able to step back and suddenly just for a little while, I saw a bigger picture, like a three-ring, a multi-ring circus. So I felt like they allowed me to step out of the rings a little bit.
Right. So just put some space between you, whatever you is, and the experience, the experiencer and the experience, right? The subject and the object. Just put a little space in there. Yeah. Thanks, Bev.
Hi, Elaine has a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was doing meditation with a different group, and we would repeat in our brain or in our head, what am I, what am I, what am I?
Mm-hmm.
Is this related to that, or is this something different?
No, it's related. It's definitely related to that. So what am I is just another form of the same kind of pointing out phrase, the same kind of, the idea is to just to induce there to be a shift, to notice the awareness itself. So,
Okay.
and, you know, and I should say that, you know, Mickey's, I mean, I'll go through the presentation and so you'll have a bit more structure to it, but actually having that shift is not at all necessary to practice Mickey's teachings. It's really just, it can be helpful, but it's absolutely not necessary. And he doesn't really talk about it. That's really something more I brought in from my practice. Like he talks about, he definitely asks the question, who notices, a lot, but he doesn't in any way suggest that it's supposed to shift you to awareness of awareness. For him, it's just a way to create some space between, so you can see that you're the one noticing the experience rather than being immersed in the experience. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So why don't I go into the presentation, and you can ask questions through the presentation, and we'll have a little time at the end as well. So I'm going to share my screen, and so when I do this, it's going to kind of take over your screen, and so don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And okay. So, and this presentation will be about a half an hour. And just to walk you through a general overview of it. So first I'll talk a little bit about Mickey Singer. He calls himself Mickey. So even in the book, he calls himself Mickey, even though his official author name is Michael. So I'll talk a little bit about him, and then this is my own sort of thing, the Untethered Soul meets the Four Noble Truths. When I was thinking about how to organize it, I realized that Mickey's teachings quite nicely fall under these categories of the Four Noble Truths. And for those who don't know, the Four Noble Truths, that was Buddha's first teaching and a real centerpiece for Buddhist philosophy. Basically, that there is suffering, that we all experience suffering, that there's a cause of suffering, and we can identify that cause, that there is, you can call it a cessation of suffering, or alternatively, Thich Nhat Hanh calls it well-being, so there is well-being, and then there's a way out of suffering, or there's a way towards well-being, you can say. And so Mickey's practices align quite nicely with that. And I would encourage you to ask questions anytime. You don't have to wait till the end. So you can either unmute yourself and just ask, or you can ask in the chat. And hopefully I'll notice it if you do it in the chat. I think I will. It makes a little thing on my screen. So, and if you like, this is just a little Zoom tip here. Instead of having my image on top of the presentation, you can have them side by side. And to do that, you just go into the view options at the top. And this only works, by the way, if you're on a computer. It won't work on an iPad or a phone. But you can go into view options, and you can go down to the side by side mode. You can see that here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but go into side by side mode. And if you do that, it will look like this. And then you'll see between the images, between the images of the people, the camera, the video images, and the presentation itself are these two lines. And if you drag those, you can make the presentation smaller and the people bigger. Anyway, that's just for those who might be inclined to want that. I sort of like to watch presentations that way. So a little bit about Mickey Singer. So when he was in his early 20s, back in 1971, he that's when he started meditating, and he wound up having this really deep experience in the woods. And at the time, he was doing his PhD in economics, and he decided, you know what, I just want to live in the woods and meditate, and I'm going to drop out of this PhD. So he had a little money. He bought a piece of land in the woods, and he built his own hut there. And all he wanted to do was practice. And while he was doing this, and he also did a little bit of traveling in his VW van, and he observed that whenever he let go of his personal wants and just served the moment in front of him, whenever he just sort of did whatever the moment seemed to call for, that life went really well, really well. And so he decided, I'm going to practice this surrender. I'm going to stop listening to my personal mind telling me I want this and I don't want that. And it led him to a really amazing life. So, a whole bunch of things, and this is in his book, The Surrender Experiment, a whole bunch of things happened to him. People would ask him to do this or that, and his mind would say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And he just put that aside and said, okay, well, does this make sense that I do this, right? So people asked him to teach them meditation and yoga, and he really just wanted to be on his own, but he did that. And then they asked him to build a meditation hall on his land. And so he did that, and he called it the Temple of the Universe because he wanted it to be open to everyone and have all different teachings in it. And along the way, he wound up getting into personal computers when they first came out, and people asked him to develop software, and he was asked to develop. A couple of doctors asked him to develop medical billing software. He really didn't want to do it. It's like, this is a huge task, but he agreed to do it. He set aside his personal mind and said, sure, I'll do it. This is my way of serving the universe. And, one thing led to another. And this guy who just wanted to meditate in the woods wound up leading this $1 billion medical billing software company. It was a public company. And he was the CEO. There wound up, long story short, one of his employees was stealing from him, knew they were onto him, went to the FBI, made up this whole story. FBI raided the software company, and all the executives were charged with fraud. It took 7 years for them to be vindicated, and during that time, he wrote the Untethered Soul. And so now he still lives at the, they bought a bunch of land around as he got, there was a lot of money coming in, and they bought all sorts of land around, but he still lives in that same place. He still gives 3 talks a week. He still is there for morning and evening chanting every day. And so at this point, he's a pretty simple life. He's very in demand as a speaker, but he doesn't go anywhere. The only place he's gone is to go on Oprah. And, when I called to arrange a visit there, I said, oh, is Mickey going to be there? They said, yeah, Mickey never leaves. I said, what do you mean he never leaves? I mean, here's this guy, he's got a fair bit of money, he's in demand. No, he never leaves. And, getting to know him and spending time there, I mean, he says, every moment is a vacation. Like every moment, there's so much joy and there's so much good stuff going on. Why would I need to go anywhere? And I'm needed here. I'm needed here to give these talks and to give, to be there for the community. So he really practices what he teaches. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm on time here. So his book in a nutshell is, you are not your experience. You are the one who notices. So we practice that a little bit in the meditation. You experience all these things, thoughts, feelings, the outside world, but none of those is you. Your body too. None of those is you. You are the one who notices. And that there is this flow of energy, this wonderful energy of joy, love, peace, enthusiasm. And it's always there. It's always there inside it. But we often can't see it because we're so distracted by the other stuff going on. Most of what the other stuff going on is our blockages getting triggered, our internal knots getting triggered. And so for most people, this flow of energy is, you can call it blocked or you can call it covered up. You know, it's, they're both metaphors. But you can learn to unblock it. And that's really what his book and this course is about, is learning to unblock it. And as he says, the reason he called the book The Untethered Soul is because it's like a hot air balloon. When you cut the tethers, when you unblock it, you don't have to do anything to experience this joy and this love, this energy. It naturally floats up, right? And by the same token, no matter how hard you try to get up, if the tethers are still there, it's not going to work, because they're going to hold you down. So the first noble truth, there is suffering. And so a place to start for this is that there's a voice in your head. And I think, you know, I think anyone who's meditated realizes that there are these thoughts that happen. They happen on their own. We don't intend for them to happen. But this is constant commentary of what is going on in our life. It's very self-referential, you know, really focused on finding a place of comfort, on I like this, I don't like that, this is how things should be, I want this, I don't want that. Or just things should be like this, things should be like that. So, you know, you've probably noticed if you've been meditating a while, that these thoughts are not the truth. You know, we tend to identify with them and just believe them if we're just caught in them, but they're not the truth. And you can, and when you ask yourself who noticed, you know that you're the one noticing them, right? It's like watching a TV. So you're noticing these thoughts, and you know, you can change the channel on the TV just as the thoughts can change. And you're not those thoughts. You know, you're the one who notices them. You know, so you can be in a room with a TV and you can be totally engrossed in it and forget that there's a room there, forget that there's maybe other people watching with you, and just be totally engrossed in the TV. And our life is even more powerful. We've got thoughts and emotions, we've got, you know, vision and sound and sensations. And so it's really captivating, and we completely forget that we're the one watching, and that there's more to this experience than what we're focused on in the moment. So so this voice, which he also calls the personal mind, the personal mind maybe is a little bigger than just the voice, but if you observe the voice, you'll see that it really comes from a place of discomfort, of lack, of like, I need something to be happy. I'm not content. And so in this voice, you know, when it's, you know, it's commenting on things, and it'll take one side and say, oh, things are like this, and then it'll take switch sides, and you'll notice that it's really just trying to find a comfortable place to rest, to feel better. It's just constantly trying to make you feel better, and that's because you don't feel great, you don't feel okay. You know, not that you feel terrible, but it's just, there's just this, sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's strong, this sense of lack, of not being okay. And this is all driven by fear and desire. And this is why I say there is suffering, because this is the suffering, is this constantly, you know, feeling this lack and constantly trying to find a more comfortable place. So it's driven by fear and desire, and fear and desire are the lowest part of you, basically. And because you've got all these thoughts going that come from this fear and desire, it's really running your life. So that's, you know, there is suffering. And so you say to yourself, to your mind, okay, and these lines are straight out of his book, but I think we all do this, that we tell our mind to figure out what we want and what we don't want. You know, things like, I want everyone to like me, I don't want anyone to speak badly, you know, I want everything I say and do to be pleasing to everyone, I don't want anyone to hurt me, I want everything to happen that I don't want anything to happen I don't like. want everything to happen that I do like. So we say to our mind, okay, can you figure out how to do all this? And, our mind, does what we say, right? So your mind tries to figure all this out. How can I get what I want and avoid what I don't want? And this is an impossible task. So we've given our mind an impossible task, and this breaks our mind. This is really not a fair job. So that's kind of our predicament. And, so moving on to the second noble truth, the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering, the main cause, is the desire for things to be different than they are. And I'm not talking about in the future, I'm talking about in the present, right? In the present, things are as they are. And your basic decision is, am I going to fight with it? Am I going to fight with things as they are? Or am I going to fully experience this, right? Thich Nhat Hanh talks about deeply experiencing the present moment, touching life deeply. Well, touching life deeply is a moment-to-moment thing. And so in the meditation that we did, we focused on this this idea of letting go of resistance, of fully experiencing each moment, right? That's what Thich Nhat Hanh's talking about, and that's what Mickey's talking about, is letting the experience in all the way, letting go of resistance, and opening fully to whatever's there, and enjoying the present moment. Very similar. I find Mickey's teachings very similar to Thich Nhat Hanh in their approach, because in every moment we can complain about the way things are and want them to be different, or we can do our best to enjoy what's there, right? By the way, does anyone have any questions to this point?
I do have a question actually, Laurie.
Yeah.
Philippa here. And it's actually something that came up this week for me in my practice. And I read a passage in a book, and it said, Buddha advised, not to be a bystander to your experience. So I equate that to like observing your experience, to be a bystander and observe your experience. So I have some sort of confusion this week a little bit from experiencing. So you open to the experience, but you observe it at the same time, and you don't get caught up with it. So by reading that at the weekend, it became a little bit fuzzy for me, actually, what is like truly opening up to experience, and not just an observer and a bystander to your experience. So I'm wondering, could you draw a little
Okay, you've frozen there, but I think I got enough of your question. And I'm not familiar with that passage, so I'm not exactly sure what the context was where he was saying that, because his teachings are highly context dependent. What they call skillful means. What's good advice in one situation may not be in another. But